Now we have two speakers, so that's going to be an even bigger challenge. We have Lena Pattersson, Swedish Transport Agency, and Brita Eklund, Associate Professor at the Stockholm University. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So now it takes a... So we'll talk together about the minimizing discharges of toxic substances from leisure boats and effective ways to cooperate and get results. So I will give the background. I'm Brita Eklund from Stockholm University, and Lina will talk later on how the authorities are acting together with different kind of actors and stakeholders to get results. As you probably know, the Baltic Sea that's the reason why we're here. It's a very vulnerable sea, and that's why it was appointed as a particular sensitive sea area in 2004. And that means that we have to really take care of this sea area for different reasons that we have heard about. But even though we have had quite a lot of knowledge for a very long time, the coastal areas are still negatively affected by discharges from leisure boats. And many of you have been to a boatyard, and you can see that it looks like this. When the people are doing maintenance on their boats, it falls down on the ground, on the soils, and you get flakes on the soils. And eventually, if you have a flood and a big rain or so on, the risk is quite large that it will come out to the adjacent waters. So that might be a clear, the leisure boats are a clear risk to the coastal areas. And one of the big risks are the toxic compounds used in antifouling paints. And people have been so inventive during the years, so everything toxic you put in the paint and use as antifouling paints. So we have had different kind of metals that have been used: copper, zinc, lead, mercury. PCBs have been used as an antifouling component, different kind of organic compounds, and most of all, the organic tin compounds like TBT. And the results, if you look at the boatyard soils, we see all these components in very, very high concentrations. And now we'll continue on TBT. It's which has been used since the 60s and was the most common ingredient in antifouling paints during that 60s, 70s, and 80s. But then it became known that the TBT had endocrine effects, and that's nothing that we want in the ecosystem. So since 1989, TBT has been prohibited on leisure boats within EU, leisure boats below 25 meters. So it's been, and since 2003, it's also prohibited for big ships in Europe. And since 2008, we have a global ban for all ships. So TBT is one of the most toxic substances that mankind has produced, so we really want to get rid of it, and it is a prioritized substance. So everyone agrees about that. And it also has been shown that the TBT has the potential to also affect humans. We have seen effects on mammals, that is affecting the immune system and the hormonal system and nervous system and the fertility. So we want to identify those boats that still have TBT and do something about them. So at Stockholm University, we have developed this instrument using the XRF fluorescent machine analyzer, by which you can just shoot on the boat hull and you can detect different metals. And if you discover tin, it's an indication of organic tin compounds. It's a very fast method, so within 10 seconds for each measurement, you can get the results. And we measure tin, copper, zinc, and lead, which are the important metals that has been used. So the conclusions we have found after been measuring quite a few boats is that in general, 10–20% of the leisure boats have high TBT content on their boats still. It's not that they're using TBT today, but there is probably in underlying layers, and it comes out with when they're doing the maintenance work. And it's probably affecting the sediment outside. And TBT is one of the main reasons why we don't achieve good status in many sediment around in the Swedish coasts. And what we also can see that the several known of hazardous pollutants, and very many of them prioritized, are found in boatyards, maintenance areas, and then far exceed recommended guidelines. So that's also something that should be done about this. And the risk is evident that this discharge is getting out to the adjacent water to the boatyards. So there is really need for regulations, and that's where Lina is continuing.
Hello. Okay. Thank you, Brita. My name is Lena Pattinson. I work at the Swedish Transport Agency at the Civil Aviation and Maritime Department. I work with issues concerning environment and recreational crafts. Since 5–6 years, I have met Brita and her colleagues many times, and we have discussed these problems with TBT, copper, and so on. And my perspective has always been, what is the regulation, what does it look like today, and which authorities has the surveillance, and so on. So I try to do a map how this is today, and this is what I found. So, as you can see, it's quite a mess. I feel quite bad for the boat owners and for the boating clubs to have this reality. For example, we, the transport agency, have the surveillance for the TBT on the hull. The chemicals agency has the regulation for the paint itself. The Swedish Agency for Marine and Water Management, they have the guidelines for cleaning the boat. The municipalities have their own local regulations about special water areas and what is allowed to use there. The boating clubs have their own intern bylaws. So, this is why I initiated a project called Skrovmålet. I haven't found any good word in English, so maybe it's a bit strange to you who doesn't speak Swedish, but it's a project about trying to minimize the negative effects of the chemicals on the boat hulls and the boat paint. So this is 1 year ago we started this common project because I think that in this mess with all the stakeholders saying different things, we need to cooperate and make a common regulation and have a common picture. So, so far, in 1 year, we have had a national conference here in Stockholm in October last fall. And actually all of these stakeholders, authorities, organizations took part in different ways. So 1 year of this project, we already involved all of these. And it's very positive reflections in this conference. We also started to do some mapping about what do we already know about these chemicals, what do we know about TBT, copper, and so on. So we have facts and not just thinking or guessing. We also have started to do a compilation of regulations. So all the authorities involved in this project have tried to list what their regulations or guidelines look like. And then maybe we can use this to come up with a better solution. So step 1 will be in 1.5 years. We're going to present a report to Miljömålsrådet. It's not also, I don't know the English word. And then the final report we're going to present in 2020 to the government. So hopefully after that, it would be a bit easier for the boat owners and the boating clubs to see what they can, how they can live up to this, and together we can achieve this, I think. Well, thank you for listening, and please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any thoughts or questions about this.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think that was really wonderful. It was a nice way of ending a session that is a bit heavy, pharmaceuticals and chemicals and so on, but really, you know, clear in the end. 2 presentations now, well, all of them actually, showing that we make progress, and this was very hands-on if you're a boat owner. Just very briefly before I let some tricky questions in here, this is something you do in Sweden, and you said only a year. But obviously it's something that could be applied everywhere in the Baltic. Do you have collaborations with other countries in the Baltic Sea region to try to speed this up?
I have been involved in a project called Change, which is a bonus project, and we have Finland and Germany and Denmark, besides Sweden.
Okay.
So they're all involved, and I've been out measuring with the XRF in those countries too, and looking at it, and it looks different. And one thing, like in Finland, you find a lot higher copper values on the boats, because there you allow the same copper paints as we do in Sweden on the west coast. Those are allowed in Finland, and you can see that on the measurement on the boat hulls.
Okay.
And that's quite unnecessary, I think.
So is that the dialogue that you've been able to have with Finland and Finnish researchers?
Yeah, the Finnish researchers, but we are on our way to produce an article about it, so it will come eventually.
And how about public authorities? I mean,
also in Skrovmålet, we have so far we have just had the national view to see first what our own problem is and what we can do about the legislation. But the next step, of course, will be to look out in both HELCOM area and the EU, of course, and there are already interests to see what we are doing. Is your sense that it's equally complex picture in the other countries as we have in Sweden? No, for example, in Germany, there is already a very strict legislation about this maintenance work that you do in a boat yard. You are not allowed to, use a high pressure. Yeah. It's very much more strict regulated, so it's not the same. So, yes, please. Well, I can just start with, because I'm also in this regeringsuppdrag om mikroplaster, and we have a report that says that this is a big source, but from our own analysis, we don't think that it is that big a source. We think that the chemicals in the paint is much more a danger to the sea than the plastic parts. That's what I can say now. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Yeah, I can say also that, of course, we have been thinking of that too. And now at ACES, we have a project, not me, but other people, researchers have a project looking at
paint flakes as plastic product and the toxicity that they involve. So more knowledge will arrive.
Excellent. Any final question? It's always, you know, before coffee, but anyway. Yes, please.
I guess before coffee it's suicide. I work for the city of Stockholm and environmental and health administration. And we have agreed upon in all municipalities in the county of Stockholm to have an action program to convince and buy the environmental act in Sweden, force the boat clubs to have an action plan to get rid of the antifouling paints that are not allowed, especially in Big Lake Mälaren, which you are not allowed to have toxic substances at all. But it's a big worry that your program is legislation somewhere 2020, because that is not our plan. Our plan is to have them. We really need an advice to the boat clubs from the national agencies, and the problem is that we can tell them what they not can use. We can't say what they should use. If we are talking about antifouling paint, then no paint at all is the best. That is the message. But I think it's a little bit slow because we also have to deal with the chemical status and the ecological status in our water bodies. And we can't wait for 2020.
I agree with you that it's a slow process, but if we have all these authorities, organizations working together, it's slow. It's nothing that says that you can't go, you know, before this. If you choose to ban the antifouling in your water area, it's fine with us. And if other municipalities follow your example, which is very positive one, I have to say, maybe we don't even need a legislation in 2020. Maybe it's enough with these positive actions.
I think that I've been out measuring on a couple of lots. And I know. But what I want to say is that there is a very positive attitude to stop using antifouling paint. So it has really changed. I think people are willing, trying to use other methods like using a boat brusher and manually cleaning their boats and taking away old paints and so on. So
there is a combination, really, a sort of voluntary push, which can also be supported by individual municipalities and cities, but also at the same time trying to speed up legislation as well.
Because also the West Coast and the East Coast, it's also a big difference.
Yes. And one of them is the back side and front side. We know that. We don't go, let's not go there. No. Okay, so thank you very much. It's a coffee break now. And we will meet again at 4:15. So I really ask you to be back in the plenary hall 4:15. There will be a quick session there again, and then there will be a final parallel session. This day will never end. It just continues. Parallel sessions. It's so great. A warm applause. Thank you so much.